I just wanted to start and congratulate you on your Emmy nomination for Still.
Thank you. Very kind.
It's fantastic. And I also wanted to say I was looking through your films and saw that you've done Ice Age: Dawn of the Dinosaur, which
Yeah.
is an odd one, but it's a comfort movie for me. So thank you
Oh,
for doing this score that's been stuck in my head for years.
oh, well, good. Yeah, we've all got those in our history. That one that just, was at the right point at the right moment in your life. Just it hits a bell.
All right. So I wanted to start off by asking just a baseline question. For someone like me who has very little knowledge of film composition and writing for screen, how would you describe your process from the jump organically? How do you compose a score?
There's the important thing, which is that I understand the story. I understand the film. And then the question is, can I compose something sort of that can evoke things that are useful to the storytelling?
Mhm.
And in this particular case, one of the essential things was really trying to sort of make sure I captured Michael. It's funny, when I came out of college and I'd studied composition, and certainly not film or anything. I didn't know I was going to go and do anything with film. But one of the things I used to do was I used to write little kind of portraits, musical portraits of people I knew. And I didn't realize until sort of doing this film how useful that was, because it was kind of it was a little indulgence based on the fact that I loved the Enigma variations so much, which is, Edward Elgar taking one tune and then adapting it and doing variants based on different people in his life,
Right.
and his feelings about them and sort of their characters. And it's a really useful thing, for me to have done, because I think trying to capture, characters in films, it's not just what you see. Obviously you can see certain things about them,
Right.
but there's this other subtextual level, which I think music, if I can find that sort of almost the essential part of somebody that I know and I love, and I can just tease that out musically, then that's a useful piece of music for the storytelling, because it adds this extra dimension where musically I can do things with that and it's not out of step with the character.
Okay.
So I think that's the first thing to always try and do, is try and find material, try and write pieces that seem to capture the things you need for the movie. So I did
Right.
that with this, loads of them, and then played them to the director, and he liked them all, but he asked a very smart question as well: how do they fit picture? And then that was the hard bit. It was like, okay, well, out of 12 pieces, probably 4 were useful when you put it against picture,
Right.
even though all 12 of them had something in them that I thought was useful.
Right.
Otherwise I wouldn't have written them all. Only 4 seemed to have, I don't know, the right were part of the right language, or spoke the right language that seemed to fit with how the film was working.
Okay.
So I mean, that's how I started this one. That's pretty generally the way, but some are slightly different. But this one was very specifically that way.
Was there a different part of approaching this just in the first stage because it's a documentary and it's a much different sort of thing? Was there a different beginning to it, or was the process the same for you as far as going in?
Well, I was sort of hired as an animation, composer who writes fun, joyful music for a very deliberate reason, which is, Davis, the director, did not want, and neither did Michael, want the film to sort of get bogged down in Parkinson's. He wanted joy in it because Michael's like that. So I knew my job going in, and so I did start the same way that I would often start, any other film. But then, of course, I quickly discovered that this is a documentary. It's not the same, and I tripped and fell many times, over not understanding why things weren't working the way I would expect them to work, because it was my 65th film. And so having done it 64 times before that, you have a certain expectation of things, working the way you think they're going to work, and often it didn't. So it was quite an interesting and humbling experience for me, to remind me that, I may have been doing this a long time, but I don't know shit.
That's interesting. I wondered, in sort of the same breath, since it's so much different, do you ever find yourself going back to older films or older projects to draw from them, or is it always a new specific thing?
On particularly difficult projects, what I have done in the past, quite often, is when you look at something and you think, there's no way I can do this. I don't know how to do this. I will sometimes just go back and remind myself that I've done something similar, by just playing a bit of one of the scores and just say, look, you did this, so you must be able to do that. I didn't do that on this one because I didn't have anything to compare it with, and I didn't think there would be a problem. It just turned out to be harder once I started really sort of engaging with it, and making the music, fit. And fitting the music is easy. By fit, starting, stopping, being at the right place, changing, shifting, all those kind of things. It's just technical. But fitting, as in sort of be absorbed by the skin of the film, so that it's not, the wrong kind of music for this. I'd never seen such a vivid version of, you put the wrong thing on and it feels like the skin of the film has got a rash. And you have to immediately take that thing off of there, because it's like, this thing does not like it, the film does not like this, and it's like, and you can't really sort of find any particular reason why. It just doesn't work. And it's not just the director telling me that, and sometimes he would tell me that and I couldn't see the rash, and other times it was vivid, it was very clear. So it was a learning process, having to try and learn more about how to do documentaries kind of while I was on the job. It was weird to be in that position again, because most of the time I do appear to look like I know what I'm doing, but not on this one.
Is documentary now something you'll try and seek out more, on purpose after? No.
Way too hard. Maybe with Davis again, because
Okay, right.
he's great, and I think I trust him not to judge me, but what if I with another director who's like, this guy does not know what he's doing still, and it would be like me on my second film, as opposed to
Right.
my 67th film, whatever. So it's really hard, and and I took way too long. So I've described this film as more of a hobby than, because it, also there's no budget, and compared with all these other films. So I spent so long on it. I spent 5 months doing it, for only 39 minutes of music. That's not sort of, that doesn't work for how to be able to sort of make a living, really. At least, not the way I'm used to living. So it was a great thing to do, and I think it was one of those things where I'm really pleased I did it, because it reminded me of that I don't know what I'm doing, way more than I realized, and but my instincts were good, and they still gave us the material to, that when I figured out how to fit it, and when I figured out what was right, it did do things. But it was lots of little kind of impulses that, and you just have to see the ones that work, and know that there's nothing wrong with your judgment, to create everything, even if only 5% of it is the right thing. It's just about deciding. Then it's like judging and deciding, and being okay with the fact that, okay, I didn't know how to make it work, but I made things that I eventually were, once I stripped a lot of it away, we did find the right things. I hope. Yeah.
It was brilliant. So I would say you found the right things.
Okay. Oh, good.
I've got one last question, because I think we're almost out of time. But you talked about, I saw an interview where you said that often you'll do sort of like an actor does and put your mind in the story and try and envelop yourself in that emotion. And for a narrative film, I can imagine that, I mean, they can be fantastical, like How to Train Your Dragon is, but for still, was that more difficult because it was so much more real than something like that to put yourself in it and try and feel it to reach that emotional core?
That could be part of, it's interesting, it could have been part of why it was so hard, is that if I sort of try and envisage myself as the characters in films and the scenes, they're all fictional, and the situations, whilst they resonate with me, and that's what makes me sort of emotionally hopefully give up some good stuff. This was harder because it was real. And if you sit around all day and you think to yourself, okay, what would it really be like to be in that situation? And the answer you come back with is, there's no way I could be as upbeat about this situation as he could. It becomes very, it becomes, you have to sort of, then you start judging yourself. I mean, all I could feel was that I ain't no Michael J. Fox. I would never have been able to do what he did. I don't think I'd be able to face that kind of thing down in the same heroic way, and that doesn't mean that he doesn't feel it as painfully as I would, perhaps, but I truly doubt that I'd be capable of that kind of approach to life. I wish so it probably hurt to get close to it like that, because I realized my own failings, but it then became, I think, inspirational to try and sort of support a story that told us all that people can do that, and that maybe gives us hope. It maybe gave me hope at the end.